you can order one. It's going to take a little bit. So, but I appreciate
Tiffany,
you noticing.
thanks
What's up,
so
y'all?
much, Tiffany.
Howdy.
Hey, Tiffany. Good to meet
What's
you.
up? Johnny, we've met before with Trent and the cycle thing.
Oh yeah, that cycle thing was a blast. I was sweating so crazy.
Riding the bikes. Hi, everyone.
All right, let's do this. We're going to go live. Ready? Thank you all for joining us for this conversation on mental health as this issue has become more and more important within the Silicon Slopes community, within the state of Utah, within society itself. I believe we've put together an incredible panel to help talk about this issue today and to give their experience, advice, anything they want. And I want to start with you, Tiffany, and the work that you do, and kind of get your sense for one, what we're dealing with currently, like why is it so prevalent, and two, maybe what we can do about it, and whatever else you want to talk about.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm Tiffany Roe. I'm the founder and CEO of Mindful Counseling. We're seeing more than 2,000 folks a month in my clinic. We have one in Provo and one in Sugar House, and I'm a clinical mental health counselor. I've been doing therapy for over 13 years. And since the COVID pandemic, we've seen a huge mental health crisis emerge for everyone, particularly entrepreneurs. That we know that entrepreneurs are 50% more likely to report having mental health conditions compared to the general population. There's a lot of reasons that's the case, and we don't have time to probably go into all the nuance, but prioritizing our mental health, taking care of ourselves, and understanding like this is common. It's most of us. And I'm going to be frank, we have higher rates of suicide. 1 in 3 of us are depressed. 62% of entrepreneurs are saying that they're having anxiety specifically related to like their business. And it's affecting so many things. Sleep. This can lead to like substance abuse, gambling problems, relationship problems. So if anyone feels like they're alone, they're not. This is really common among business owners, among entrepreneurs. And it's definitely not like a moral failing or a weakness. This is because we're human and we have high stress, high stakes jobs. And so one, I just wanted to point out some of those stats, how normalized this is. And the number one needle mover is having a friend who gets it. I've done the research. I can teach you all the nervous system intervention hacks and how to like, calm down your nervous system and coping skills and teach you all the therapy skills. But the number one thing that has helped me also as an entrepreneur is finding another entrepreneur friend. And something we need to talk about is success is not a protective mental health factor. And I think that's a really slippery slope for entrepreneurs. I know when I hit 7 figures was my lowest depression of all time because what it took to get there. And that came with suicidality, the loneliness of being the founder, right? And so we need to start having these conversations, and having a bud who gets it, another founder, another boss, another entrepreneur, can be a real game changer. And there's other things we can do like nervous system, coping skills, getting a therapist, learning to do one thing at a time and to turn off your phone and to not have your identity be based on your success, and learning to like ride those waves. So that I wanted to start there. If there's anything else you would like me to say or comment on, I'm all here for it.
Well, Tiffany, I wonder, like, if I can follow up here real quick. This idea of like having a friend who gets it, I think that's beautiful and accurate and incredible. And we're going to hear a story here from Joe in a little bit that will only make that even more accurate. But I wonder, from your perspective, like, how do you go about that? Right? Like, let's say like it's not as easy for some folks. How do you go about having a friend who gets it?
Oh my gosh, we all need therapy to like figure out adult friendships. First of all, like it's so weird. Like it used to be so easy when we were in high school. You just make a buddy. It takes risk. You got to put yourself out there. I became really good buds with Rachel Nilsson from Rags because I just took my shot on Instagram. I DM'd her and I was like, hey, you seem cool. I want to be your buddy. Like, I'm looking for friends. And I just thought about doing that because I see my son who's 6 at the playground and just walk up to people and start making relationships. And I'm like, do I have too big of an ego? Or do I think I'm too cool for school? Or do I think it's embarrassing if I say, hey, I need connection. Can I talk to you? I'd love to get to know you. I'm not asking you for anything, just looking to connect with other people. So I think we just have to be willing to say it's worth it. This is going to help our mental health. We need to be like connected to people who get it and make that effort, take that risk, and be vulnerable. And there's plenty of like little meetups, whether it's a mastermind or, you know, things held through this community where we just can go meet people to look to make connections, and just start with like, hey, let's get coffee. Hey, what's up? Like, oh, tell me about your company. Like, you know, no strings. We just have to shoot our shot, be vulnerable.
I love that, Tiffany. Thanks so much. And we have people sending in questions, so I'm going to bring you back here in the conversation. But now let's go to Earl Foote. I would love for you to give a sense for the state of mental health in Silicon Slopes and the tech community. And we recently went through something as a community that you played a significant role in. So, Earl, take it away.
Yeah, for sure. You know, first of all, just happy to be here with all these great leaders, you know, and talking about something that I feel like is really important, you know, and just to back up Tiffany's, you know, her comments, from the sitting in the entrepreneur, the founder chair, you know, mental health is a constant battle. Like, you're constantly dealing with self-doubt, with imposter syndrome, with self-limiting beliefs, and, you know, the pressure is high. And it's like, it's something you're constantly trying to master. So I guess the first thing I want to communicate is like, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to talk about this stuff. I deal with it. I'm a 25-year entrepreneur, and I'm still building every single day, my business, and I'm still dealing with my own self battles every single day. And some of those are severe, lows, and some are severe highs, right? Openly and transparently, I have 2 coaches and a therapist so that I can navigate my way through, and friends, peer groups, you know, people I hang out with, you know, buddies that I just share, you know, that we share kind of, what we're all dealing with, you know. So I have a CEO coach, I have a life coach, and then a therapist. And there's no shame in that. There's no shame in knowing that life is hard, and that you need help to navigate it. You need tribe, and you need people who can help stretch your mind and help you reframe things in life. Now, I do want to be fair, you know, and I'm not sure exactly, you know, the crowd that's tuning in today, whether it's, you know, all leaders or whether, you know, we've got, frontline contributors that are tuning in from the Silicon Slopes area or beyond today. And the reality is this mental health, you know, problem scales well beyond, you know, just the founder crowd. Now, as Tiffany mentioned, there is, you know, empirical data that shows that it is more prevalent right now among you know, founders because of the high stakes and the pressure that's involved. But this is something that, you know, that reaches throughout our community. It reaches, you know, into children and teenagers and adolescents. I think it's interesting to note as well some of the studies that have been done that show mental health can be more prevalent among underrepresented populations, and they're less likely to be vulnerable and open about it. They're less likely to seek help. So I was looking up, and I think if I can find the data here, among white Caucasian Americans, I think like 46% seek some sort of, you know, help with their mental health challenges. And those numbers for underrepresented populations are around 30%. So it's a pretty significant, you know, difference there. Now, Clint, you alluded to something that, you know, very near and dear to my heart, very tragic, for me personally, and, for the community at large. And openly and transparently, mental health challenges and suicide ideation has hit my own family, my own children. I am the father of 3 biological children and 2 stepchildren. So we have a blended family of 5. 3 of my 5, children have had suicide ideation, challenges, at least at some point or another. And I won't say that I've been absent. I won't say that I've been, I'm not an exception to that. A couple of weeks ago, we lost a dear friend, Vladimir Philippe, who was a founder, was building a cool ed tech platform, a very impactful ed tech platform called Cotto. Here, Glad and I've been friends for maybe 5 years. I was a bit of a mentor to Glad, but also just, spent time together, doing some different activities, hanging out, going to different events and stuff together. And Glad kind of hit rock bottom a few months ago, and he hit crisis mode. Was threatening to take his own life, and ultimately, with some help and some intervention, was able to, get some help. Unfortunately, a few months ago, he hit crisis mode again, but didn't really reach out to anybody, and he decided to leave us, and took his own life. And really, really incredibly sad thing for me. A guy who literally one of the most promising engineers, one of the most brilliant engineers that I've ever seen. He had an uncanny ability to be able to dissect a problem, to create a technological solution to that problem, and to do it on his own. Like he could build an MVP app in like a week, an app, on his own, that would take teams of engineers months to build. And so incredibly talented, had a bright future ahead of him. I can tell you that with Glad, Glad is Haitian American, of Black descent. With Glad, belonging was a problem for him. He definitely felt out of place and didn't feel like he could find his tribe. And that made his mental health challenges, significantly more amplified for him. And so, definitely I have an interest in seeing that there's more awareness, more conversation around this topic in our community, and certainly that leads to more impactful efforts in the end. I personally don't want to lose more friends, and I certainly don't want to lose family, to mental health challenges.
Earl, thank you so much for sharing that, for being vulnerable, for honoring Glad's legacy here with us. Stick with us because we're gonna have a conversation here. Johnny, let's go to you.
Thanks for having me, Clint. And thanks for your words, Tiffany. Thanks, Earl, for sharing that about Glad as well. It is a solemn reason why I think we're all gathered together, and these situations happen too frequently, for all of us. And as Tiffany mentioned, success, money isn't always what we should be striving for, although finances can be a big part of why we go into depression. I can share just a little background for a lot of you guys that know me. I've been a pretty vocal advocate for mental health. I've had multiple therapists over the last several years. I've learned different modalities to help with coping and healing, and so many amazing things that have helped me. But as Tiffany said, I think friends have been the greatest thing. And for me, answering that question that was posed to her on how do you find a friend, to me, it is about being vulnerable and just opening up. And I swear, just an ounce of vulnerability will bring on a tsunami of people wanting to help and being by your side. It'll also bring a tsunami of people that'll open up themselves, and share their own struggles, because we're all dealing with it. And I think for me, on the financial piece, one of the things that was really surprising for me is I raised a Series A for my company, Homie. And we raised 23 million. Clint, you guys in Silicon Slopes put out the press release, TechCrunch put out a press release, but just that process of raising money was incredibly stressful. partly because I had a family member that attempted suicide, and I caught them in the act right before I raised this money. So, everyone immediately is like, "You're crushing it, like, good job." And in reality, I was getting crushed. And I didn't open up about that. It was a little too personal for me. I did with my friends, my close friends. I wasn't vulnerable on LinkedIn about that situation in particular. But I have another friend who sold his company for a ton of money, and he just opened up to me, and he told me that this is the hardest year of his life, that with that money has come other challenges and other situations, and people that he thought were friends, he is now questioning if they're friends or if they want his money, and it's like, there isn't an end goal of where you can be to, like, this is where I got to get to be happy and healthy. Like, I believe we need therapy always. We need friends always. We need to be vulnerable. We need to continue to just share how we're doing and be real, not the fake how you're doing, but being real. So I've tried to implement a lot of those things at work and with coworkers, and I found, success there, in having people open up. But, I've still had friends, as glad, that ended up, not getting the help that they actually needed. So, a tough subject, but one that we absolutely should continue to address always. So, yeah, thank you for inviting me, Clint.
Of course. Thank you, my friend. And thank you for sharing that. Now I want to go to Joe Tuia'ana, who is a personal hero of mine, and you're about to find out why. Joe, why don't you take it away and tell your story?
Talofa, everybody. So great to be with all of you guys today. It's man, I think we've been on the call 15 minutes or so, and I'm stuck here taking notes and all these different things I can't seem to write down fast enough. Just some of the quick insights that I've received. Real quick, I'm a single full-time girl dad of 3 daughters. Again, my name's Joe Tuia'ana. I am not a licensed clinician. I don't pretend to be. I have no formal education on mental health or suicide prevention. I just happen to be, I guess I could say, shoved into the arena of mental health and suicide prevention because of what I can only describe as, a beautiful, horrible, amazing suicide prevention experience that I had last January that I was blessed to be a part of. Clint can almost probably say the story as well as I can, but for the sake of time, and I know I'll be on the podcast soon, but I'll probably give the Cliff Notes version of the story. Me and my daughters were on our way to a basketball game, just like we normally do a couple times a week. This basketball game happens to be at the junior high, and to get to the junior high, we have to cross an overpass, and one that we've crossed, many, many times. On the way this particular day, we spotted a young man in the middle of a suicide crisis, standing on the ledge of the overpass facing the freeway. I pulled over, told my oldest daughter to call the police, and to my other 2 daughters, you guys stay calm. They were out of their minds. We're all kind of out of our minds, just scared. I said, just relax, kind of like, Dad's got this. Like, they probably thought like he has everything else, And so I pulled over behind his car, took 1 step out of the car, closed the door, and I'll tell you, the first feeling that I had immediately after I closed the door was I thought I was going to throw up, just right then and there. And then that quickly shifted to, I thought I was going to pass out, all because of how afraid I was at that time. I myself suffer from my own mental health um, uh, issues, and so these were coming up at the time. And so from there, I should say, I was thinking, man, I'm 6'3", 300-pound guy. I could very well make the situation worse just by being me approaching this guy. And so I was said a quick little prayer that I just wanted this guy to know that he was loved. And so I was thinking, man, well, maybe if I open my arms out to him um, and walk slowly towards him, I may not seem as intimidating. And so I did just that. I started walking towards him slowly. And the only words that could come out of my mouth was, I love you, bro. And I said that probably, man, it's crazy, first of all, how loud an overpass is. If you've ever been walked on over one or on a sidewalk of one, super loud. And so I want to say that I said, I love you, bro, but probably at some point I was almost yelling it at him as I approached him. But then soon enough, I got pretty close to him. He was standing up higher, just above me on this ledge on the other side of this protective fence. And when I got to him, and he turned and looked at me, and every time, every time I tell this story, depending on what I'm going through, it hits a little different. But he turned and looked at me, and he was just crying. So of course,
Joe, I think you went on mute.
Joe,
you know,
oh, Joe, sorry. You went on mute there for a second
oh,
for
sorry
us.
about that.
No. We lost you when you said when he turned his head and he was
Perfect.
crying. Yeah.
And so at that point, it's time I felt, so relative. It just like throws throughout this experience. But I felt, he started frantically looking between me and the freeway. And so, like, I was, 18 again, just jumped up there and felt the need to just grabbed him by the hoodie and the belt, lifted him over the fence. And he held on to me like his life depended on it. And we slid down to the sidewalk together. And I just held him in my arms like he was one of my kids. And there was this perfect peace for about, I want to say, a minute or so, but all I could say and all that I really should say at that time was, I love you, bro. That's the only thing I said to him this whole time. And that's the only thing he needed to hear at that time. So shortly after, 911, dispatchers came, and, this beautiful moment kind of disappeared, and they took him and he received his help and whatnot. We're very close now. His name is Aaron. He's like my little brother. I check in with him. I like to say I check in with him every couple weeks. And I text him the same thing. I text him, I love you, bro. Sometimes he'll reply back. Sometimes he'll say, oh, I love you too, bro. But it's more like a reminder for not just him, but for myself of the perfect, this perfect peace and love that I experienced with him that day. And so, I mean, shortly after that, to Earl's point, or I'm sorry, I think it was maybe John who said it's like uh, a thing now where it's a sacred experience where um, I didn't want to share it with anyone. I didn't want to put it on, social media anywhere. It was very precious to me, and I was convinced to do so. And the story kind of went viral. Everybody started hearing about it, and started doing interviews all around with people all around the world. And soon enough, it came to a point where I started thinking to myself, the story is beautiful, yes, and it's changed my life for the better in so many ways. But it's just that was a 1 in 10 million experience that the stars aligned, that I happened to be there at the right time, the right place, and said the right things. A lot of stories do not have that ending. Um, and I think about Glad, who I don't even know. You guys all know, but man, do we all need someone, excuse me, someone to be there on our own overpass, on our own ledge. Um, and I started thinking even further, why did it even have to get to an overpass? This is something that should have been, or at least addressed much earlier. And so from these tears with Aaron on this overpass, from this story, I created the I Love You Bro project, which is a brand new 501c3 nonprofit that were started, which addresses specifically men's mental health. We talk about statistics all day long, and they're scary. You just open the paper or look on your news feed, it's scary. And so men take up, we're getting close to 78-79% of all suicides. I want to address that specifically and uniquely. And so as I've gotten to know Aaron a little bit over this past year and a half, almost 2 years, I can't believe it. Two things stuck out to me. And one is that Aaron felt completely disconnected from everyone. He had no trusted person to text. He felt shame just reaching out, feeling like he had to reach out to anyone. He had no one to turn to. The second thing was he had no idea how to handle the feelings that he had at the time. A lot of us don't. Difficult feelings that he was experiencing. He didn't know what to do with those feelings. And so the I Love You Bro project specifically, what we were going to do is we are going to we're going to connect men together. I don't care what color you are, how old you are, how much you make. We are going to facilitate connection. And and that's going to be through groups, through activities, through service in the community. We're going to connect. We're going to build a brotherhood of belonging, so to speak, a tribe. You hear, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it should never end at a child. It takes a village to recover and repair a man, and it needs to happen all their life. The second thing the I Love You Bro project is going to do is give men the tools that they need to help themselves and also others. So everything that are plaguing men in our community today, anger management, divorce, addiction, stress and anxiety management, loneliness. I mean, no one even talks about this, but our elderly men are the highest risk out of everyone, and no one knows that. I want to address that specifically. Anything from personal health and breathing and dietitians, and I want to have formal educators and clinicians come in and teach us how to handle these feelings, but also how to be better in a lot of ways, how to be better husbands, how to uh, relationships, how to build better relationships, and how to handle your money, your budget, and finance. The fact is, guys, I'm so thankful that we can afford therapists, and I'm so thankful that we have coaches and are able to go on these retreats. But the fact is, we are the very few. We are the marginal few that can afford these things. So the I Love You Bro project is going to have these classes, have these. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to be therapists or anything, but connection within a brotherhood and educators coming in and teaching us, helping us be better. Um, and it's free, accessible to all men, and inviting men come gather, be together. Let's learn and grow together. We're all projects. That's why the I Love You Bro project is called the I Love You Bro project. First, because those are the magic words that we all want to hear when we're in our, at 2 a.m. When we're suffering. We don't want to hear a motivational speech. We don't want to hear, well, my therapist said this. We don't want to hear what you're going through. We don't want to hear scriptures quoted at us. We want to just be listened to. We want to be loved. And I want to create men who can be there for men to do those specific things. At this point, we desperately need your help. If you're listening, we need donations to help fund locations, our educators, everything to get the word out. This will happen. I'm fighting for this. This is my life now. To close real quick, Clint, as if I wasn't emotional already, but if you're listening, and you're struggling, you, you are not alone. You are needed and you are required for us. You could be a perfect stranger. Strangers love you. Perfect strangers are there to help you, to love you. I'm fighting for you. Please stay with us. I love you, bro. Thanks, Clint.
Joe, I love you, bro. Thank you so much for sharing that and for who you are as a person. Joe, real quick, and I want to kind of move this conversation into what can we as a community do to help address this problem. But Joe, real quick, how do people get involved? Do you have a website? Where should we send people?
Well, I think ideally right now we're just in the collecting donation mode. So if your company, or I guess if people are here who are participating or listening, would love to get involved more as a company, I would love for you to reach out to me, or they can reach out to you, Clint. But if you would, we do have a website. It's called iloveyoubro.net. That you could come see. Kind of, it's a very basic, very simple. You can give donations there as well. But I would love it if we can be a part of your company, to show your men, the men that you work with from the top to the bottom, side to side, that you are investing in their mental health for them specifically, and this is what we're addressing. And so you're welcome to please donate at the website. But I'd love it if you reached out to me personally. I'd love to come talk with your people, talk with your men, but to help in any way possible. the best thing right now, of course, is donations. Clint, if you can get involved that way. And I'd love to come visit your company, talk to you guys more. And of course, Clint, we have the podcast coming up where Aaron, my new little brother, who I loved off the ledge, he'll be joining us as well. And in a more detailed story, lots of details in there. But I'd love it if everyone listening could be involved and really help us out that way.
Thanks, Joe. It's iloveyoubro.net. We have a question in the chat before we move to this. What can we do as a community to help here? And Tiffany, I wonder if you might be the best person to answer this, or if not, no worries. With a higher prevalence of neurodiversity in entrepreneurs, paired with higher mental health challenges in those with autistic / ADHD, etc., do you think that explains some of the higher rates?
Yeah, we know, and I'm talking about founder stats, but with founders with ADHD specifically, we're 6 times more likely to have it. And it's one of the reasons we're so successful in entrepreneurship, right? And that, I mean, we know folks who have ADHD, they were more likely to experience trauma. So there's so much intersectionality here and co-occurring things that happen. So neurodiversity is going to increase our risk for other things that we might face. And so when we see that on top of the workplace and we're in like a neurotypical world, yeah, that can account for some of the things we're seeing with like the mental health struggles. You add a pandemic on top of it that took away all of our distractions and forced kind of our issues to come to the surface. That's another factor that might be increasing this. But just the nature of entrepreneurship or being, someone in the workplace, you don't have to be a founder. And I'm sorry if there's more people here than who are the leaders, that there's a lot of factors and stressors and pressure and loneliness and isolation and lack of connection that can lead to these things. But definitely there's more prevalence with neurodiversity in this crew for sure.
Johnny, you've been engaged in the Silicon Slopes community for a long time, been a major leader. Earl, all of you have. But Johnny, I wonder, what do we do as a community? What should the Silicon Slopes community do here? This is something that I rack my brain about all the time, and obviously having conversations like this, I hope, are helpful. But what can we do? What do we do here? I mean, supporting Joe and his organization, of course, but in a lot of ways, I kind of feel helpless. And like, how do we help solve this thing?
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's anything we're going to solve anytime soon, and it's just something we have to continue to keep talking about. And I think over the last several years, we have done a really good job of getting rid of the stigma. I've seen a lot of people come out on social media, sharing their challenges, being vulnerable. And that's huge. I think that makes such a difference. And it really is on an individual basis. So to me, Clint, like, you're leading by example, setting the tone here, having these weekly meetings. I think all of us individually, if we could be more open about our struggles, specifically any leaders that are part of Silicon Slopes, I think if they were more open, the people that follow them, that idolize them, that worship them, that put these on these pedestals, they will, I think, in turn realize, like, we all have challenges and we all need help, and they'll open up more. That's at least what I've seen. The more that I've been open, the more that my coworkers have been open, the more we've bonded. But I love all the organizations that exist here in Silicon Slopes. I love all the people that are putting effort into this. And so it's just something we've got to continue to stay on top of. And I think with the world the way it is, with inflation going where it is, with politics being more divided, it's going to become even more needed. And it meaning that support that we have for one another.
Earl, what call to action would you give the Silicon Slopes community?
Yeah, really good question, Clint, and I guess I do want to preface my comments and my previous comments by saying, look, I'm not a mental health professional. Tiffany is, trust, Tiffany's data and guidance better than mine. that being said, I have, specifically because this is such a problem, and it is, when you're building a high performing organization, understanding the human psyche and understanding what makes people tick, and where there are going to be challenges, and how you can help motivate and inspire, and how you can help people do their best, their best work, and feel, belonging and all that kind of stuff. I do surround myself with some advisors, and actually one of the senior members of our leadership team, is a doctor in behavioral science, in the neuroscience, in neuroscience. And so there's a lot here that I've studied and understand, and I consult with people on, so that I can understand better, how this shows up in my own life, in my family, and in my business, and how I can deal with it. I think my comments would probably, follow the vein of some of the other comments here. First and foremost, make it okay to create dialogue, to create vulnerable spaces, to talk about this openly. Do it in your families. Make it okay for your family to talk about it, because the place where you're going to have the most impact the fastest is in your family, right? Family, or your tight-knit circles, your tribe, whatever that might be. If your family is a tight-knit circle of friends, great. Make it okay to talk about this stuff and be real, and make it okay for everybody in that circle to do so without shame. Certainly, being able to provide opportunities and forums within your businesses to do those types of things, to the extent that it's appropriate, and the extent that it makes sense and your team is comfortable with it, right? I know for example, we have lunch and learns, with Amelia Wilcox and her team from Nevada. They're one of our providers, one of our partners. They come in and do lunch and learns with us, on mental health topics, but not just on mental health topics, but on tools to deal with our mental health challenges, and of course resources, when people hit crisis mode, and that type of stuff. So think about the things you can do in your companies, and think about how, as a company, to the extent that the financial picture of your company allows you to support organizations or efforts that are making an impact. I don't think we have to necessarily reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of experts out there that we can draw upon to understand this problem and to tackle it. It's worldwide. As Johnny said, this isn't going to be solved overnight. But the more we have engaged leaders in the community and in business that are helping to bring more awareness and more movement to the topic, then I think the more we're gonna chip away with this. From a couple of personal perspective things, and some of the things that I've learned, again, with children, with mental health battles, and my own as well. It seems to be that the more a person can find purpose and meaning in life, the more that they can align their life with a life by design, and whatever that purpose and meaning is, it doesn't matter. It just, it's determining something impactful and meaningful that you want to do in your life, and that you have a mission. That can have a huge impact on mental health, particularly, when you hit lows, because life's tough. Business is tough. Business is tougher, and you're going to go through some massive lows. And so, having a North Star engaged, and helps get you through those difficult moments, especially with some tribe around you to do that, I think is super important. Belonging, again, finding belonging, and that can be really challenging for, particularly, again, I know I keep mentioning, underserved populations. And transparently, my 3 biological sons are Mexican American, and my 2 stepchildren are Costa Rican American. And so, representing minority populations, although I'm a middle-aged white male, is important to me. And I think it's important to help, particularly in the tech space in Utah, help create environments where we're creating belonging in the workplace. for people who may come from diverse backgrounds that may not be, may not transition or identify as quickly with tribe within the workplace. Figuring out ways to help kind of solve that problem in companies, I think, is important. Giving people an opportunity to belong. And kind of my parting words, and I don't, we may come back around here. I just want to say, if you're tuned in right now, whatever your current life situation is, you matter. You're important. You're needed in this world. You're here to do something important. You're here to have an impact to some extent on some segment of the population, or to do some sort of important work. The world needs you. Don't check out on us. Like, you're loved, just like Joe said. You're loved. Like, you may not understand it, you may not know it, but the world needs you, and you're loved by people, and we want you here with us. So, hang tight, work on the things, and find people that can help you.
Tiffany, I have a question from the group here. They're asking, how do we chip away at the stigma around mental health and addiction? And I wonder if you answer that, and then how would you close today's town hall? The floor is yours, Tiffany.
Thank you so much. First, I want to say this is a microcosm of what has to happen. What is happening right here in this town hall is it. Open conversation. Every single person on this panel has said, I've dealt with this. People I know have dealt with this. These are successful, huge, inspiring leaders that I'm very moved by your personal stories and opening up. And this is it. We talk. The step to break the stigma of mental health, like, you can rock a shirt that says therapy is cool, I've been chipping away at this, but that's not what really does it. It's these badasses, these leaders, these people. It's the person next to us at work saying, I don't want to have a pulse anymore. It's saying that and talking about it and normalizing it and being like, I don't have to have shame. So stigma is this outdated, old school burden we're all carrying. And the step that we all have to take is opening up and being honest. I'm a therapist. I know every single skill. And that's why I tell everyone 7 figures was the worst day of my life. I was miserable, because if that's happening to me, maybe there's a breath for someone else that can say, like, wait, this isn't a moral failing. I'm not a loser. I'm not like weak, and all these other people talking about that. So that is what I'm going to keep pounding on, keep talking about it. We have to be vulnerable. And then education. Fighting stigma requires education, because we're so ignorant about mental health in our society. We had PE, physical education. We didn't have mental health education. We didn't learn anything. We didn't learn about grounding or mindfulness, or I have this feeling, and if I simply feel it, it'll pass. Like, these basic human skills, right? Men have been socialized to not need love, connection, belonging. That's weak. That's an eye roll. Like, these basic things that y'all are talking about are exactly what we got to do. We're doing it right here. So I'm just like cheering it on. And honestly, I've been researching this and studying this for over 13 years. And what y'all have shared is exactly what I would say. So cheers. And you're exactly on point. If I had to kind of wrap it up, and I can, because what I do is I cruise around Silicon Slopes in the country, and I speak to companies and people about workplace mental health, managing stress in the workplace. I coach entrepreneurs on mental health. None of this is going to be revolutionary, because y'all have already said it, but I've come up with 5 things that really move the needle. 1 is get a friend. We've talked about that. How do you do that? You got to be vulnerable. And I love what Joe's doing. And Joe, I want to host you at Mindful Counseling. Use my space. It's huge. You can come use it for free, and let's get men there and like do some of this work together. So getting a friend, support in a community. Number 2 is fighting stigma, which we have said, because we have too much shame to reach out. So knowing you're not alone. Meds are cool. It's great to take meds. If you need those, use them. Therapy is cool. It's not weak. It's mandatory. Like, it's oxygen. When the stakes are high, like, we fight that. And everyone I know who is doing this is radically protective of therapy, of medication, of like doing the things that we're afraid to say we need to do. But I'm with you. Get a coach, get a therapist, have that crew, have that purpose and meaning, all that kind of stuff. So we're fighting stigma that way. Number 3 would be mental health strategies and coping skills. And y'all said that. And that's kind of my special sauce. I love teaching that kind of stuff. Mindfulness, number one, no matter what, learning to be present in this moment, stop future tripping, stop catastrophizing, come back here, learning self-compassion, how to manage feelings, just like Joe was talking about, learning how to regulate your nervous system. How long have you been in chronic fight or flight, trying to scale or trying to please your boss or trying to hustle, right? Learning to cope with pressure, learning to cope with loneliness. And I'm going to name drop psychedelics here. Specifically, ketamine assisted psychotherapy is FDA approved. So I'm not saying anything that's illegal, but a lot of folks I know need some additional medicines or things like that to help come out of deep, dark mental health spaces. And something like ketamine is research based to help with acute suicidality and depression. So if other things aren't working and you're hopeless, there's probably more levers we can pull, and just like getting that out there, right? Number 4 is burnout and self-care, and learning like success isn't a protective factor. Your needs are going to matter. You're not just your job, right? Protecting your routine, because that's what's going to help you breathe, having boundaries. And oh my gosh, Earl named it, meaning and purpose. That's huge. No amount of like freaking meditation is going to overcompensate for if you don't find any meaning or purpose in life. So I'm with you on that. And then the 5th thing I recommend is crisis response, which was also said. So y'all, I mean, you know this, we're doing this, we're fighting for it. And I think crisis response means understanding one thing that I've learned from the research. Depression isn't the leading cause of suicide. It's feeling trapped that is the leading cause of suicide. And how many founders and leaders or people in workplaces or men are isolated and trapped. There's no way to get out of this. There's no hope. And so what we want to do is spread that, and knowing if you're trapped, let's break out of the cage. What do we change? Let's find those warning signs if you're feeling trapped, knowing that that's what it is, having safety plans and being open to ask for help. And that's why you need a friend, because that's the person you're going to text and say, I'm having some dark thoughts. Can you work with me today? So yeah, if you're wanting me or recommendations on folks to come speak at your company or talk and do small groups or large groups and to talk about this stuff, I mean, that's my dream, is to support the entrepreneur mental health game and help prevent the suicide skyrocketing here in our state. And I'm honored and willing to join with any of you in any of your projects and support that.
Thank you to all of you for joining us today on the Town Hall. Thank you, Tiffany, Earl, Johnny, and Joe. It means a lot to have had you guys here for an hour speaking to this community. This will be watched and listened to by a lot of folks within the community. So thank you for doing that. We will do another one next Wednesday at noon. Make sure you tune in. We'll announce who the panel is. But we're going to keep doing this. In the meantime, thank you so much. You're loved. See you next week.